So today is September the 11th, 2023, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I thought I'd mark the occasion by saying something about understanding and countering psychopathic behaviour. So where to start? Usually, I wake up in the morning full of negative emotions and negative thoughts, which is just my bad karma playing out over the long term. Because I've got a lot of psychopathic behaviour as experience to draw from in talking about understanding and countering psychopathic behaviour. There's the precedent of Angulimala, whose name means finger necklace. He was a murderous bandit of the Buddha's era who used to save the fingers of his victims and hang them in a necklace around his neck. So the kind of person you might call a stereotypical psychopath. But to do so would not be in accordance with the teaching of emptiness. Because in light of emptiness, nobody inherently is anything. So the task is not to transform ourselves from being something into not being something, or from not being something into being something. Like, it's not about I was a psychopath and I wish to be a Buddha. I wish to stop being a psychopath and to be a Buddha. No, what's important is not what we are, but what we do or don't do. And in the sphere of not doing, what we allow to happen, what we let happen, what we make happen. So, where do we start? Where do I start? Not denying what's happening. If what's happening is bad karma playing out, the starting point is not to deny that. The cat has come to add its meow. Go on, off you go. So, how I start every morning is not even thinking about thinking anything, but just setting the bar as low as I can, making a friend of whatever's happening, however crap it might feel. Then, after some time, maybe half an hour on a good day, less if I'm tired and I'm not going to see it for so long, I think these words: let's see what happens in a friendly way, just sending the knees forwards and away. Knees forwards and away, like asking one's best friend, not much. So in those few words is, for me, the starting point of countering. And countering includes the understanding of not denying psychopathic behaviour and the karma resulting from it. And it's the starting point of countering, going in the other direction from psychopathic behaviour. So those three elements are making a friend of being wrong, making a friend of being wrong, and wanting little. So making a friend of being wrong is the first of the 4 brahma-vihāra that I want to discuss. Then wanting little is the first of the 8 truths of a great person. I've got videos discussing those already. And then these forwards and away is, in practice, what I found is vital for me when I'm applying those principles of friendliness and wanting little in Zazen, or as the Buddha called it, bhāvanaṁ, the practice of letting happen. So the 4 brahma-vihāra are the 4 recreations, let's say, of spiritual growth. Brahma means, if you look in the Sanskrit dictionary, it has to do with growing fat. So it suggests spiritual growth, not as an abstract thing, but something like growing fat as a real kind of natural process. You find the word Brahma in the word brahmacharya, which means like a life of spiritual growth, or the career of spiritual growth, which is a teaching the Buddha praised very highly. It was already a tradition in the ancient India of the Buddha's time, and what it meant concretely was a life of celibacy in pursuit of spiritual growth. So brahma-vihāra is the same with Brahma, spiritual growth, and vihāra means walking around, going around, recreation. In the Buddha's time, the monks would practice and live in a vihāra. So it has a connotation of somewhere where you walk around freely. Has a connotation of faring well, going well. So recreation. So the 4 brahma-vihāra, the 4 spiritual recreations, or the 4 adventures, even the 4 excursions into the 4 recreations of spiritual growth. So the 4 are, in Pali, Mettaṁ, Karuṇaṁ, Muditaṁ, Upekkha. In Sanskrit, Maitri, which is cognate with Mitra, which means friend. So Metta means friendliness. Then Karuna means kindness or compassion. Mudita means joy. And Upekkha in Pali means, in Sanskrit, Upeksha. And that's from, literally, overlooking is probably literal. Upa means kind of over, and Iksha means looking. So overlooking in the sense of forgiving, transcending. Often it's translated equanimity, indifference, detachment. And in terms of their antonyms, the opposite of metta is vyāpādo in Pali and Sanskrit, and that means hating, ill will, unfriendliness. The opposite of karuna is vihesā. Vihesā means aggression, aggressiveness, violence, cruelty. The opposite of mudita is arati, which means discontent, unhappiness. And the opposite of upekkha or upeksha in Sanskrit is patiga, which means blaming, resentment. So if I talk from my experience of the four opposites of the four brahma-vihāra, really those four: unfriendliness, cruelty or violence or aggression, unhappiness, and blaming, resentment. Really, there's the essence of psychopathic behaviour in those four, isn't there? So we can say that countering psychopathic behaviour is cultivating the four brahma-vihāra. I mean, cultivating fits if we think they're kinds of growth. So in one sense, over a lifetime, we'd say that practicing Zazen is cultivating those four. If we understand bhāvanaṁ to mean letting happen rather than cultivating, then the very act of practicing Zazen as a letting happen is inherently a friendly, kind, joyful and transcendent practice. So from my own experience reflecting on it, the way I was taught to practice in Japan kind of suited my conditioning that I'd cultivated from the age of 10, when I went to the school I went to and started playing rugby and developing a kind of a macho, as far as I could, a macho hard man persona to mask the kind of frightened tendency that I had. So I used to do weight training at lunchtimes, and then I was captain of the rugby team of my year, which was the year below me at school. So I really cultivated. I wasn't a particularly skilled rugby player, but I could channel aggression well. So I had a kind of an unfriendly, aggressive. I actually cultivated the opposite of friendliness and kindness on the rugby pitch, and then also, you know, that was a kind of protective mechanism off the rugby pitch as well, a kind of muscular armouring. So when I started practicing Zazen in Japan, I took that conditioning into practicing Zazen. So I was told that the essence of Zazen is right posture, which means essentially keeping the spine straight vertically. So if I demonstrate that, you'll see me. I now know that's the wrong approach, but if I consciously do it, you'll probably see me take a deep breath, because this is one of the ironies of Zen practice. If you consciously do the wrong thing, it can be very liberating, because it liberates us from the tendency to try to be right. So if I go ahead and do it, I'm gonna go directly for I'm gonna follow the idea of lengthening in stature, keeping the spine straight vertically. And if I pull the chin in and straighten the neck, I really go for it. Okay, so this is how I practiced in Japan for 13 years before I came to the Alexander work, not realising that I was really kind of cultivating psychopathic behaviour in a sense by doing that, because to do this, to go directly for a specific end, especially if you don't realise that's what you're doing, thinking it to be the right thing, is really the essence of psychopathic behaviour, because it's creating collateral damage. See, in Alexander terms, to lengthen like this is to do so at the expense of narrowing. Alexander called it lengthening and narrowing. So as a preventive for that, he said, spine to lengthen, back to widen. And an even more fundamental preventive that I found works for me is sending the knees forwards and away. So that's why I start. Most Alexander, the orthodox way of giving Alexander directions is let the neck be free, to let the head go forward and up, to let the spine lengthen and the back widen, sending the knees forwards and away. So knees forward and away often tends to be kind of afterthought. But for me, I found it works in Zazen as the first direction, I think. Because so a very wise Alexander teacher astutely observed when she was working with me, she said, in her still Eastern European accent, because she's a Polish Jew named Nelly Benor, a survivor of the Holocaust in Poland, she said to me in her ringing tones of a virtuoso concert pianist, she said, "For you, up is a poisoned word, isn't it?" And she was right. And what she meant is that if just the sound of the word up, and after all those years in Japan, I can't resist. It triggers in me this doing the up, which is the lengthening and narrowing. And if I do that, what's happening at the level of my pelvis and legs is that my back is pulling my legs. As I sort of push up from below, my legs are getting pulled into my pelvis. So there's a tightening in the hip joints. So knees forward and away is asking not much, but it's asking for the opposite. It's preventive. So if I can nip the lengthening and narrowing in the bud like that by sending the knees forward and away, then I'm on the road to Tipperary. Let's see what happens in a friendly way. Sending the knees forwards and away. Knees forwards and away, like asking one's best friend, not much. So, just today reflecting on it, in light thinking about 9/11 and psychopathic behaviour, there can be joy and transcendence or forgiveness in psychopathic behaviour. That's why, when I used to play rugby, I loved it. I enjoyed it. And when I practiced Zazen in Japan, I loved that as well. I loved doing my old thing. There was joy in doing this, and there was also a kind of transcendence in it. Also in doing the Shobogenzo translation, I had the same motto, the same mantra that got me through those 13 years in Japan, which was sometimes tough in some ways. Just fucking do it. That's what I did. So that's how sometimes psychopathic behaviour is how you get a job done. Okay, the people responsible for planning and executing 9/11, that they were people who you've got to hand it, they got the job done. The more you look into it, it's amazing. They planned that and they did it. They were Zen masters in their own way. They had an intention And they absolutely did it. And what I'm saying is there's joy in that. There can be joy in that. Like any warriors going to war, they report it's the happiest time of their lives, united in this common purpose. And the transcendence part of it, the idea is you got that task in hand is so important. You don't care about the collateral damage. That's the fucking of just fucking do it. I'm going to get the job done, and it's going to be making an omelette, and if I have to crack a few eggs along the way, so be it. I am so important. My task is so important. It's get out of my fucking way. This is important. I'm going to do it. So you've got the third and the fourth of the brahma-viharas there. That's the thing that just struck me today when I was thinking about it. If I didn't enjoy it and find transcendence in it, I wouldn't have persevered for those 13 years. But more and more, especially towards the end, I realised that there was a mismatch, a cognitive dissonance. What I was practicing, the way I was practicing, and what I was reading in Shobogenzo, something didn't add up, which is one of the meanings of samadhi, actually. Samadhi means putting together. And when I practice now, on a good day, I have the sense of, like the Buddha said there, Aranyagato va, Rukamulagato va, Shunyagara va. It means having gone to the forest, or gone to the root of a tree, or gone to an empty place. So here I sit thinking that, and there is the forest, you see, and I'm on my own here. So there's a sense of, that's what the Buddha said, and that's how I'm practicing. Now in Japan, that sense of it fitting together was lacking often. So when I came across the Alexander technique, things started to add up little by little. And what the Alexander technique did really was supplied the first two of the four brahma-vihāra. That were the friendliness and the kindness. Because, see, as I said before, the friendliness and the kindness are inherent in letting happen. We tend to think of metta is something to be cultivated, which I think is fair enough. If it's a brahma-vihāra, a thing about spiritual growth, then to cultivate it is not a bad idea. But at the same time, if we think bhāvanaṁ means letting happen, which it does, literally it means letting happen. Cultivating is also a literal translation. But insofar as bhāvana is a letting happen, it's a friendly practice. And this is where Alexander's insights come in, because the whole point of Alexander work is that we want the going up to be a letting happen, not a doing. You see, this is going up, but it's not going up in Alexander, so it's going down, but it's trying to go up. Because it's at the expense, it's lengthening at the expense of narrowing, it's not going up like a tree grows up. It's going up in a very artificial, contrived way. So Alexander work is about not doing or non-doing. So that the going up is associated with the back widening and the knees going forwards and away. And that can't be done in an unfriendly way. This is the point. Alexander work is letting happen in a friendly way, and that's truism, because letting happen can't be unfriendly. Okay, if I sit here and say head forward and up, spine to lengthen, back to widen, knees forwards and away, that can be effective, but only because I know it doesn't work if I'm unfriendly about it. So even if I'm pretending to be unfriendly, something within me saying, no, well, you can be unfriendly as you like, it won't work if your intention is unfriendly. If your intention is to go for the target directly in an unfriendly, aggressive way, then it doesn't work. But if you give up the sort of striving, then it works. So again, working with the same teacher, Nelly Benor, who's like a virtuoso piano player and a virtuoso Alexander teacher. I work a lot with her with my wife. So I put my hands on my wife's neck, and Nelly would take my hands, and she would kind of, without saying that, she would shake them as if to say, to get that unfriendly, aggressive intention out of your hands. Empty your hands of intention. And so you think, okay, yes, you know, let it happen, etc., etc. And you put out, and you do it again. You do it again. And eventually you get to a point of, fucking hell, yes, that's it, she was saying. So you can't contrive the letting happen. You see, even if you're trying to think all the right thoughts, the trying is still a bit of end gaining, a bit of unfriendly aggression. So it's when you give up on all that. That's when you actually let it happen. So it's no easy thing. It's no easy thing, even if you understand what I'm saying. If you actually try and practice it, we all run into the perennial difficulty, because we're conditioned to be psychopathic in our behaviour, really, to go for things directly rather than letting things happen. Especially if you went to the kind of school that I went to, but if you went to any school in our education system, really, it's the same thing. The emphasis on passing exams and getting things right. So first thing Marjorie Barlow, FM Alexander's niece, taught me when I started having lessons with her in 1998. Listen, love, she was sometimes, listen, love. Being wrong is the best friend you've got in this world. Because I was sort of delved for trying to be right. Being wrong is the best friend you've got in this world. Being prepared to be wrong is the golden key. Okay, so that's Mettaṁ bhāvanaṁ, the friendly practice of letting happen. The letting happen has to be friendly, otherwise it's not letting happen, it's doing. So then, see, that relates to when Nagarjuna says, avidyayam nirudayam samskaranam sambhavaha. Where denial is being stopped, fabrications do not happen. So when you stop trying to be right is a denial of the whole thing that I've just been talking about. So when you really stop trying to be right, just like I was talking about with Nelly, you know you have to stop trying to be right, but the hands, it's like they don't hear it. So Nelly will keep going, no, no. And then you get to that point of, I give up. Yes, that's it, because you've stopped trying to be right. That's the true stopping of denial. And then the fabrications don't happen. It's exactly what Nagarjuna is talking about. So again, it's that samadhi, the theory that Nagarjuna wrote, and that experience of Alexander work is exactly the same. So the next line is avidyaya nirodastu jnanasyaiva bhavanat. But the stopping of denial is in light of this wisdom through letting happen. Oh, and this is the difficulty with Nagarjuna, because there's always more than one meaning. It can be, but the stopping of denial is through cultivating just this wisdom. See, if we take bhavana as cultivating, then the object cultivated is just this wisdom. But if we take bhāvanaṁ to mean letting happen, standing on its own, then the genitive jnanasyasya means it's not the object of cultivating, but it's modifying letting happen. So, but the stopping of ignorance is through, but the stopping of ignorance is in light of just this understanding through letting happen. So it means, this is how I prefer to understand it, it's letting happen in light of emptiness, because letting happen is in light of emptiness. Doing is not in light of emptiness. If we don't understand emptiness, we go directly for specific ends, and that's how we end up crashing planes into the Twin Towers. It's doing, going directly for specific ends, which is a denial of the broader teaching of emptiness, which includes everything that's happening. So there's no closing off and looking at specific ends and saying to hell with collateral damage. This is important. So what I've just said is really the whole point of Nagarjuna's MMK. Not easy to understand, but there it is. But the starting point of it all is, we can say, the friendly practice of letting happen, or cultivating friendliness. So if I go back to the Rāhula Sutta, what Buddha tells his son Rāhula, Mettaṁ Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvehi. That means, bhāvanaṁ there means cultivating or letting happen, and the practice of cultivating, the practice of letting happen. Bhāvehi is the imperative, so it's the same word. Bhāvanaṁ bhāvehi is the same word. Bhāvanaṁ is the verbal noun, letting happen or cultivating. Bhāvehi, it means let it happen or cultivate it. So it's the causative, imperative causative from the root bhu. And the word bhu, as a feminine noun, means earth. So cultivating fits nicely. So if we use the word, we can use cultivate and letting happen. So 3 options at least. Let happen Rāhula, the friendly practice of letting happen. Cultivate Rāhula, the friendliness, or cultivate Rāhula, the friendly practice of cultivating. You can't force things to grow, so it's a friendly practice of cultivating. Or if we combine cultivating and letting happen, cultivate Rāhula, the friendliness of letting happen. Let happen Rāhula, the friendly practice of letting happen. So that's talking about practice now. You can do that now. Cultivate Rāhula, the friendly practice of cultivating. That again, you're doing now. Cultivate Rāhula, the friendliness of letting happen. And that suggests a journey of becoming more friendly. And then the instruction to Rāhula continues there. Mettaṁ Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvehi. Mettaṁ hi te Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvayato. For he, Mettaṁ, friendliness, bhāvanaṁ, letting happen, cultivating, bhāvayato, from letting happen, from cultivating. So from cultivating Rāhula, the friendliness of letting happen. From letting happen, Rāhula, the friendly practice of letting happen. Yo vyāpādo so pahīyissati. Your whatever, any, vyāpādo, ill will, unfriendliness, so that pahīyissati will be let go, will be given up. So, cultivate Rāhula, the friendliness of letting happen. For Rāhula, from cultivating the friendliness of letting happen, any unfriendliness will be let go, will be given up. So there's the starting point of countering psychopathic behaviour. Then Karuṇaṁ Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvehi. Cultivate Rāhula, the kindness of letting happen. Karuṇaṁ Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvayato. For Rāhula, from cultivating the kindness of letting happen. Ya vihesā sa pahīyissati. Whatever aggressiveness, cruelty, violence, pahīyissati, sa, that feminine, pahīyissati, will be let go, will be given up. Muditaṁ Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvehi. Muditaṁ Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvayato. Ya arati sa pahīyissati. Cultivate Rāhula, the joy of letting happen. For Rāhula, from cultivating the joy of letting happen, any unhappiness will be let go, will be given up. Mettaṁ Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvehi. Mettaṁ Rāhula bhāvanaṁ bhāvayato. Yo patigo so pahīyissati. Cultivate Rāhula, the transcendence, the transcendent forgiveness of letting happen. For Rāhula, from cultivating the transcendence of letting happen, any blaming, any resentment will be given up.